So I'm going to talk a little bit about the social value of Bitcoin, and then I'm also going to talk about the BitGive Foundation, but they very much go hand in glove. It's pretty much the BitGive Foundation embodies sort of the whole concept of the social value of Bitcoin. So I know the majority of this crowd is generally more knowledgeable of Bitcoin. So I wasn't really going to get into a lot of the basics about Bitcoin and just kind of dive into this different aspect of it that I think most people aren't necessarily thinking about or aware of, or at least not to the degree that I'm working on it every day. And just kind of offer a different perspective of Bitcoin and essentially cryptocurrencies, but focusing on Bitcoin. So let's see. Oh yeah, it works great. So essentially, if you think about what Bitcoin offers in your normal ways of using Bitcoin, and think about it, how it applies to charitable causes. So essentially, the global access where you can transact essentially peer-to-peer anywhere, anytime in the world is pretty mind-boggling if you think about it. And when you apply that to charitable causes, it kind of, to me, is a different angle on it, but it's obviously the same technology that you're leveraging, right? So the impact and the potential that you can have when you think about the technology being peer-to-peer, anywhere at any time, from a charitable aspect, to me is where my passion lies in Bitcoin. Because if you think about essentially all the needs that there are out there all over the world, and mostly in areas that are very remote that we can't reach right now, or if we try to reach them, we have to essentially deal with a lot of fraud and transaction fees and all kinds of things. Bitcoin essentially addresses a lot of those issues and allows us to lift them up and really deal with a lot of these issues through the beauty of the technology. So again, like the direct transaction, there's no middleman, there's no government control. We can just provide resources to charitable causes anywhere in the world, essentially. The reduced fees is obviously a huge one for Bitcoin. For charitable causes, it means that more of that money is able to go to the cause and what you're essentially trying to accomplish with that money. So it's just it's the same benefit that we all think and talk about often with Bitcoin, but in applying to a charitable cause, if you will, is just a different angle on it, and you think about how much more it means to them and how much more it means to what they're doing in the work and the benefits and outcomes of their work when they have more of the funding to actually apply. And then just the beauty of Bitcoin and the fact that it's increased in value and it's deflationary. Obviously, if you're giving to a charitable cause in Bitcoin, that value is increasing over time if they're hanging on to that Bitcoin. Some of them obviously cash it out. They need to actually be doing their work, and so they are working in fiat on the ground. But in our case for BitGive, we're building essentially like an endowment. So a lot of the donations that we received early on, and we're young, we're not even a year old, but with Bitcoin, that's kind of like 10 years old. But the donations that we received early on have already gone up. They're right now about 6 times the value that they were when we received them. So we're a perfect example of that. And of course, we have things that we need to pay for too, and we work in fiat when we need it. But we're holding all of our assets in Bitcoin, and they're going up over time, and then cashing out as we need to pay for things. So Bitcoin and charitable causes, like I mentioned, I mean, it's reaching the need. Right now, we can actually get to the developing and the third world. We can actually access them with financial resources in ways that are direct and immediate, and can avoid a lot of the fraud and transaction fees. I think to me that's huge in and of itself. Also, pooling of international donations in one currency. So if a charitable cause in, say, sub-Saharan Africa now wants to accept Bitcoin, not only does it open them up to that direct transaction in a global donor market that they probably didn't have before and wouldn't be possible, really. It also allows them to avoid the fact that, in traditional fiat, they maybe could be doing PayPal or something if they had access to the infrastructure to do that. Many of them don't. But if they did, they're still now, having to deal with all these different currencies and, exchange rates and all this other stuff. Whereas Bitcoin, it just all comes in one currency, one consistent thing to work with and deal with. Freedom to give is another huge one, and I think in the Bitcoin community is quite popular. And the sense that Bitcoin is somewhat anonymous. It's not really 100% anonymous, and I think we all kind of know that. But there are ways to work it. But it does allow for you to give to causes without necessarily anybody knowing about it. And in some cases, obviously in this country, but elsewhere as well, if you're giving to a cause publicly that maybe goes against something that say you're a politician or you're running a church or something, and it goes against your public image, but it's something that you personally believe in, Bitcoin is something that you can actually do that with. And there's actually the organization AntiWarcom. I mean, there's really basically one of their main messages is there's ways to support things that you can do it essentially anonymously and start to fight back about some of the things that are going on. And then holding its value in government-controlled systems, financial systems. So this is I often use the example of Argentina just because it's so extreme. Their inflation rates are anywhere between 20 and 25% most of the time. And so they're essentially building an entire infrastructure around Bitcoin right now, and it's really starting to be quite popular there and quite common, because it allows them to, if they start to set it up as a community and an infrastructure in their community, it allows them to function outside of the inflation. And for them, that's huge. I mean, their pesos are essentially worth very little, and that's very difficult for them, obviously, if you can imagine. And there's a lot of government control, not only in the inflation rates, but also they're not allowed to cash them out for different other currencies, so they're basically stuck. And it's really, if you can imagine, I mean, it's really unfortunate. So Bitcoin allows them to essentially operate in a fair way where their assets hold value, and then they can actually exchange with each other as well within that infrastructure. To me, this is the beauty of Bitcoin. Capitalizing on this and demonstrating this social value, to me, is where the beauty really lies. I think right now Bitcoin is so young that we're all really, focusing on the very core pieces of the infrastructure. How do you exchange it? How do you use it to buy something? Convincing someone that they should receive it for their goods. I mean, very basic things. But this is where I'm really thinking is long-term, big picture, huge global impact. To me, it's just, it blows my mind, really. So this is just a couple of examples of charitable groups that are already taking Bitcoin. I mentioned AntiWar.com, and obviously we're up there. Probably many of you have heard of Bitcoin Not Bombs. Kind of a similar thing to the anti-war theme. Sean's Outpost, you probably all heard of too, is very popular. They feed and now house the homeless in Pensacola, Florida. And Jason King, the founder, is also now starting to essentially open new Sean's Outposts in different areas. I think he's focusing in the US for now, because he's just starting to kind of help new organizations start. He just ran, by the way, across the country, crazy, awesome, to raise awareness for homelessness. Also Free Aid and the Khan Academy, and then the Water Project is our current campaign that we're focusing on, but they are their own entity. They've been around for a long time, and they are focused on bringing clean, safe water to communities in sub-Saharan Africa. And they just announced, I say just because for me time is flying, but it was actually in January, they announced that they're accepting cryptocurrencies, and their president, Peter Chase, he is, I'm not entirely sure what his educational background is, but he's definitely into coding and Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and he totally sees, we are very much in line with how cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin really blow open opportunities for charitable organizations. So we're really happy to be working with them. So the BitGive Foundation is a nonprofit foundation. We launched last year in July, so we're almost a year old, which is pretty exciting. And we essentially, what the foundation does is it embodies all of what I've been talking about into an organization, so that we can actually start to really do what I'm talking about. So, like I said, it's nonprofit. We're Bitcoin based. I mentioned earlier we hold almost all of our assets in Bitcoin. We do obviously have to work a little bit in fiat, but we limit it as much as possible. And essentially, the idea is that this is a platform for the community to give back and to be socially responsible and to capitalize on this social value aspect and to really demonstrate that in an organized and professional way. So obviously, we can all be giving to charities in Bitcoin if we can convince them to take it, and we can be talking about it, which is great. But the foundation is a way to sort of represent that in a professional, organized way for the community, and to bring in charitable organizations, onboard them, get them excited about this, elevate them, and build that whole aspect of the Bitcoin community in the nonprofit space. We've gotten some really great national press, especially when we launched, which was really exciting. They caught on really fast to what we were trying to do, and that was exciting for us. Our mission, essentially, is, like I said, we're taking the power of Bitcoin, essentially, and leveraging that for doing good in the world. And we are focusing on public health and the environment. We're new and small organizations, so right now that's our focus. But we may expand that with time. I actually hope that we do. I'd like to start working on some social justice issues as well, but we have to we don't have much bandwidth, so right now we're staying focused. And essentially the vision is very long term. So we want to be a very robust and sustainable organization, and we think that Bitcoin provides that essentially by the sheer essence of its fact that it goes up in value, and what it provides. We think technology is groundbreaking and it is revolutionary and will be revolutionizing things. And I think that just the sheer essence of that will support a long-term sustainable organization. And we're very careful and selective about the charitable groups that we work with. We want to make sure that they're doing good work, that the donations are being effective, and that they have a successful track record. We're checking them out, making sure that they're stable, that they're legit. And in the Bitcoin space, sometimes people don't care about that, or in fact don't even want that, and that's fine, and we respect that. But as a nonprofit foundation that is representing the community on a professional level and with the press and things, that is something very important to us. So I think I talked about a lot about how the value of Bitcoin will be, obviously is already going up. The U.S. News and World Report caught on to that right away. And so we see that as essentially the way to build this endowment and long-term, robust way of giving back. We also see, obviously, that the community is being successful now and will continue to be successful and will be able to support us in the long term, and that allows our capabilities to only increase over time. And essentially, that means that the impact that we'll be able to have will only expand over time. So it's pretty exciting. We're just getting started. So. I can't even, I think most of us probably who are in Bitcoin right now realize that we haven't really probably even thought of more than half of the things that will happen with this technology. It's pretty exciting. So this is just kind of to show, we're obviously getting exposure out there. We're doing a lot of work with the media and the public, doing talks like this, and just really putting ourselves out there and our vision out there and sharing this new, or not new, but I think different aspect of Bitcoin that maybe isn't necessarily being talked about very much in the social value side. And obviously we're on Facebook and Twitter, so if you guys want to follow us, we always have lots of stuff going on, and that's the best way to keep up with what we're doing. And then I do go to conferences and the like when we're able to resource them and do talks like this. We have our traditional way of donating. So you guys most of you are familiar with Bitcoin. We have the typical infrastructure. We do use BitPay, which is great, and since we're talking about nonprofits, they actually provide their services for free to nonprofits, which is really awesome. And there's no limit to it. So I think, something that a lot of people don't know. And so if you are talking to nonprofits and charities and wanting them to start getting into Bitcoin, BitPay is a really great, a really easy and great way for them to get involved. We have a lot of support from the community. So these are our really big sponsors, BitPay, which I was just talking about. KNC Miner and Butterfly Labs as well are heavily supporting us. And Perkins Coie has been doing all of our legal work pro bono, which is great. So we're really receiving a lot of support to get this organization off the ground, and the community is really embracing what we're trying to do. And this is just even more of our wonderful supporters. We have just from A to Z, I can't even tell you, like, I've had people offer to wear our logo running triathlons, and maybe they want to do donations to BitGive for their wedding presents because they don't need anything. And I mean, it's like unbelievable the things that come our way. BitPremiere is kind of like a really high-end website for like people who are millionaires in Bitcoin, and they've actually placed our campaign for the water project on their page. I can't say that we've received any donations from that audience, but it would be great if they might think about that when they're looking at yachts and homes in the Caribbean. Sorry. And we've done some, obviously our mission is charitable giving. So right now, since we're young and we're building our own resources, we're doing campaigns for nonprofits. So our first project was with Bitcoin Black Friday, which was last fall, and it was, most of you are familiar with it, but it's the one-day sort of extravaganza of Bitcoin buying and sales, and it's essentially the alternative to the brick-and-mortar Bitcoin Black Friday. And so we talked to them about, you guys should have similar to the BitPremiere thing, you should have a platform where people can actually be giving back to charitable causes while they're thinking about all this commercialism. And they loved the idea. So we did that. We helped spearhead that and get a bunch of charities on board, and Bitcoin Not Bombs helped as well. And we ended up getting over 30 charities, and 1,000 Bitcoins were donated. And it was just that one day, which is kind of crazy. And that happened to be at the peak of Bitcoin's value, so it was over $1 million that were raised in that one day for all these charities collectively. And we at BitGive chose to do Save the Children as our charitable drive, and because it was right after the typhoon. So they had a Philippines relief effort campaign that we donated. So everything we raised that day, we exchanged into fiat and sent to them. And I mentioned the water project, so this is what we're focusing on now. And we set a pretty high goal of $10,000, or the Bitcoin equivalent of that. And we're working towards it. We can see we're getting close there with 67%, which is great. And this organization, I just can't even talk more highly of them. Amazing organization. And if we reach this goal, essentially it allows us to fund an entire water project for a community. So the project would be a Bitcoin-funded water project, and the community, the Bitcoin community, would be responsible for providing that, which I think is just so amazing. And the way they do their work, they will, once we reach our goal, identify the project that the funding will go to, and the location, and send us pictures and GPS points and all kinds of neat things, so we'll actually be able to follow the work that's being done with the money. It's really, really cool. We also are starting to do this in select cases where we've learned that when we set $10,000 goals, that they take some time, and our bandwidth is limited right now. So other charitable causes come along that we'd really like to support, and we're unable to, with our own bandwidth, to really take on more than one campaign at a time. So right now, we're in select cases considering just direct donations in smaller amounts. So this was the first one was Team Rubicon, and this was for the tornado relief here in the U.S. They are a group of veterans, actually, that deploy to help do cleanup and relief efforts for obviously projects in the U.S. And so we donated to them because we really wanted to support what they were doing, but we're right now really committed to our work with the water project. So, we're a small, dynamic, but awesome team of volunteers. I'm the staff person, but volunteering, and we have a great board that's got some heavy hitters from the Bitcoin community, as well as folks outside of the community, Bitcoin community, which I think is really powerful to have some diversity. And I have to say, I'm very proud that we are doing our part to raise the ratio of women in Bitcoin, with a female board member as well, and she's awesome. And you know, we've just, like I mentioned, we've had so much support from the community. So this, the Bitcoin weight loss challenge, we had 2 of the contestants pledge that if they won the challenge, their donations would go to us. We've had our t-shirt design donated to us. We've been on Let's Talk Bitcoin, and the local Sacramento radio station, and just a lot of events as well. Lots of conferences and the like. And we have a very exciting thing going on right now, which is the World Cup Donation Cup. And this is being sponsored by BitPay and 9 other companies in Bitcoin. And essentially it's a donation cup that's paralleling the World Cup. And they're highlighting charities in each of the countries. And it's all Bitcoin donations. So the idea is that you see these people holding these signs, is that the fans who are at the events, either in Brazil or even here at a bar watching the game, can have signs that they're essentially raising funds for charitable causes, and they have chosen a charity for each country. So if you're from the US, you're most likely going to be holding up a BitGive sign, and there's other nonprofits for like Brazil and Argentina and Colombia, etc. So very exciting stuff. And we just had a awesome fundraiser where we had 8 of the companies here in the Bay Area in the Bitcoin community all competing in a bowling tournament. It was really fun. And I see BTC Jams here. They had the best costumes. Awesome costumes. And it was just a great event, and obviously it was a fundraiser, so we raised money for BitGive as well as our campaign for the water project. So really, basically I just, we're young and we're just getting started, but I think we've done a lot of work so far, and the groundwork has been laid. We have like a great brand recognition and a lot of support from the community, and I see that we're essentially like almost in the first trimester, if you will. I mean, there's just endless possibilities of what we can be doing. So we are looking for capacity building funds right now. I mentioned that our bandwidth is really limited and we're all volunteering. So what we're doing is pretty limited. And we're hoping to change that and really build the organization to be what the vision is and what the possibilities really are on a global scale. So that's BitGive and social value of Bitcoin.